Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala Sayyidi Mursaleen. Wa khatamin Nabiyyin Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'een. We begin in the name of Almighty God, the most merciful, the most beneficent, and to whom all praise and glory belongs. And we send salutations, greetings, and love to the Master of mankind, the best of creation. He is, of course, the one, the only, Muhammad Mustafa, Habibullah, Rasulullah, Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Beloved listeners of Radio Ramadan 87.7 FM, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. May peace and abundant blessings be upon each and every one of you. And welcome back to Radio Ramadan FM 2022. Oh my days, we are back again. Brothers and sisters, ladies and gents, my respected elders and my beloved youngsters. It is me, Irfhan M, with the brand new Drivetime show coming to you every weekday, inshallah, 5 to 6 p.m, broadcasting live from the heart of Leicester City. So I'm so glad that you've been able to join us. I hope you're well, first of all. I hope everything is going okay. It is the 3rd of Ramadan or the 2nd of Ramadan, depending on when you started. And I hope you're beginning to adjust into the routine that Ramadan brings, inshallah. So, like I said, this is a brand new Drive Time show. And on the show, we're going to be having guests from all walks of life here to educate, entertain, uplift, and inform you. So, the numbers that you need to know for this show are: the text WhatsApp line is 077 488 55055. That is 077 488 55055. And if you'd like to call into the studio, and we would love to hear from you, then please remember this number. It's Leicester 0116 4822 086. That number again is 0116 4822 086. So, what is Drive Time all about? I hear you say. Well, we're going to be getting guests, interviews, comments, and contributions from listeners and contributors alike. And and we're going to be sort of sharing it with you. And we've got a text already going in. Assalamu alaikum, Irfhan. So happy to hear your voice back in. Oh, Jazakallah. That just made my heart melt there. Who is that, brother or sister? I don't know. But thank you so much for that. So really good to be back. The world has changed in the last 3 years. It feels like we've gone back in time. But coming into the Ramadan studios again has been really, really good. And I'm really glad that we can do this in this way that it's meant to be done, broadcasting to all the listeners in Leicester and beyond. So I hope you enjoy it, and thank you for your comments. And please get involved. Now, the very first guest on Drive Time is a good friend of mine. We have Brother Azar Khan in the studio. Assalamu alaikum, Azar.
Wa alaikum salam. Jazakallah for having me.
Oh, absolute pleasure. Thank you for coming. Not Jazakallah to us, but thank you for coming and giving us your time this afternoon. Brother Azar is the business owner of Axiom Energy. And he is a energy specialist and has been doing this for the last 7 years. Originally from Slough, but now in Leicester Sharif. What's that been like for you?
It's like being converted, shall we say?
Has it? So you've reverted to your natural state, yeah?
No, mashallah, Leicester's a different environment, should we say, more towards London. Mashallah, more deen focused, a lot more of a stronger community than what we're used to. So it's very nice. Mashallah, people have been nice. Obviously met yourself as well.
Oh,
so alhamdulillah, it's been blessed. So obviously family here as well. So it really helps.
Well, we are glad that you're now part of the Leicester community. So folks, we've got Brother Azar Khan in the studio, and we're going to be talking a little bit about energy, the current situation, what can be done in terms of being more energy efficient financially, but also if you're a business owner, and specifically to our business listeners out there, do get in touch, because Azar specializes in commercial energy. We will talk a little bit about domestic energy and what the current situation means for us, and what maybe the medium to long-term outlook is around the current energy crisis. But do dial in or text us in on 077 488 55055 or ring the studio on Leicester 4822 So, Azar Khan, tell us a bit about what you do.
Well, I help businesses manage energy, whether that's a small project or whether it's a large project. We go in, we are the eyes and ears in the market for them. We have a variety of options we can portray to them, whether that's a simple as go in, review energy, get a cheaper tariff. On the other hand, side of things, we help with solar panels, we help with heat source pumps, we help with electric vehicle charging, anything a business needs in order to become more efficient. Energy audits, we get people in site to carry out works for them, just to make them reduce that bottom line and become a more self-sufficient in energy. It's a minefield out there, and alhamdulillah, we have a set process for everything, and it works.
Okay, great. So, on average, in your experience and your professional opinion, how much would you say, roughly, do businesses waste on excess energy spend, shall we say?
It can vary. A normal, shall we say, takeaway restaurant is probably spending an extra £500 to £1,000 a year on just commission fees themselves.
Okay.
In terms of processes, you're talking 3 times about at that. A lot of people worry about how much brokers are charging in terms of energy, but how much they waste on energy is far greater. Simple things as of the types of machinery they're using, energy audits in terms of air cons, lighting. Are they using the right types of lighting?
Mm-hmm.
Are they using light sensors where they walk into offices and then the lights come in, or is it these things staying on all day? So you can quite easily save £1,500 to £2,000 a year on managing energy properly.
Okay, wow. That that's not small change, as they say. That's not small chips. Okay, so now 1st of April saw the introduction of the biggest energy price rises, probably unprecedented as far as the current energy climate is concerned for domestic users. Now, I know the commercial arena is your area of expertise, but in what you see and the people you talk to, this rise is massive, isn't it?
Without a doubt, it's doubled prices at least. It's for if we talk about what our household is used to seeing, £300 to £400 on a large user, we're talking £1,000 quite easily.
Yeah. So I mean, I know. So my energy supplier, emailed me and asked for my meter readings, and I just think, wow, alhamdulillah, there are some of us who are in a fortunate situation where, although expensive increases, we are able to. But I suppose there is a significant portion of the community, not just here in Leicester, but throughout the country, who are really struggling now. Just if you can, Azar, give us a bit of context as to how we got here and what were the catalyst points in us arriving in this situation.
Well, how we got here was a number of things. We saw the amount of suppliers go bust. That was a big call for action. Suppliers were set up quite easily.
But what caused the suppliers to go bust? Was that the rise? They could no longer afford to be that middleman.
It was bad management of energy. See, when we have a supply requirement in a certain area, they pre-purchase that amount of energy. If that's not done well in advance, to secure a on-the-market price, when it comes to that supply being taken over, they don't have that energy available to supply at the price that was agreed. So imagine if I say to you today, I'm going to buy you a pen from you from 5p. Yeah, if you don't buy that stock because I need 1,000, at that point it's valued at 5p. I can't come to you in a year's time and say, now I want that 5p again. Because you want to say, hang on, wait, inflation's moved. Cost has gone up. Transportation charges have changed. We had Brexit as well come in, where obviously we have different regulations come in. You're going to say, hang on, that pen all of a sudden worth 10p. I can't afford it as a customer, but we have an agreement between ourselves. So you have to honor the agreement, and the extra 5p you have to fork out of your own pocket. So the suppliers started losing money. So then they started asking government and regulation body to step in and help them financially. That's like the outside thing. There were other things that happened within the market that were not so transparent, and that's where Ofgem had to step in and say, right, your managing processes were wrong. On top of that, what we had is we had a fire in one of the storage capacities down in Sittingbourne, which was quite a large chunk of our gas reserve. And then
that literally just went up in flames.
It went up in flames. So we could not react to that. Again, bad management of grid. So had Brexit been open, it may have been a little bit, the Brexit agreement still been in place, it may have been a little bit easier to source energy from our partners, but that was gone as well. So then Russia's gone, hang on, wait, we're going to do what we're doing. and may Allah preserve the people in Ukraine and protect them and guide them to what is right. What Russia has done is also had a massive effect on prices, because they are one of the largest suppliers of gas, and then they've pulled out their supply from UK, so they're no longer working as wholly as they were with Gazprom. So it's affected everyone from a number of things. It's not just one.
Okay, so there's a few points that you made there that we'll just come back to. But folks, you're listening to Ramadan Radio 87.7 FM with the Drive Time show with your host Irfhan M, and our first guest is Azar Khan. We're talking energy and the current situation, and we are asking business owners of Leicester and Leicestershire and beyond to get in touch if they've got any questions for Azar. He is an expert. He's been doing this for almost a decade now, and he's happily going to answer any questions that you might have around how you manage your energy supply and energy for your businesses, but also giving tips and some advice on the domestic situation as well. So if you have got a question, drop us a text on 077 488 55055, or if you'd like to call in, I'd love to speak with you. It's 0116 4822086. We're also on Facebook and YouTube and all of that. So as you mentioned about not buying energy at lower prices. Now, I was reading today about the stamp prices. First class stamp is going up to 95 pence, which is again unheard of. And one person made a comment on Twitter saying, "Oh, if I'd only bought 1,000 stamps yesterday, I could sell them for that." So energy seems to be a lot like that. So obviously, we as individuals, we can't purchase energy like you would purchase stocks or shares or whatever that might be. But where do the authorities or the regulators, have they been irresponsible, or have they been caught off guard in terms of not seeing this price rise? And the political climate and the political factors aside, what has been the underlying cause of the rising energy prices?
It's what we call as hedging in the market. So when we have a supply request, just saying the next year we need, 150 gigawatts worth of energy, suppliers are obliged to buy that in advance. Mm-hmm. That's where the trading comes in. So energy as itself is a tradable commodity which fluctuates with market. So if we don't buy it at the right price, we can't sell it at the right price. So that's where Ofgem have taken that responsibility and gone, right, all these X amount of suppliers, 27 in total, were not operating with the guidelines that Ofgem has set them. So they operated in a non-regulatory way. So they were not able to buy or supply in the right way. That's why Ofgem pulled the plug on them. Okay, so
looking back in hindsight, and hindsight is a wonderful thing, as everybody says, there should have been more of a commitment to stockpile energy in reserve.
You can't really do that. It's stockpiling is probably the wrong way to put it, because when you stockpile, you hold it.
Yeah.
And the reserve facilities in UK aren't that great. Okay, so we can only stock and reserve a certain amount. And with the fires happening, that's where a lot of the stockpiles went bust.
Okay.
So when they didn't have the purchasing power and the relationships abroad, because they asked for more, because you got to remember, if you've got a manufacturing plant, like energy is manufactured or processed, shall we say, if that process is not strong enough to generate the energy that's required, we're put in the back burner. So that means we have to purchase our energies from a third source, which generally means from Asia. Now, to get the energy from Asia over to us, there's a lot more transportation charges involved, which means prices increase. So it's all been a ripple effect of so many different things. So I would love to say, yes, it was suppliers not managing properly, and yes, it was Ofgem not pulling the plug earlier. But it's one of those things, when things came together, it made a massive explosion and it revealed all the loopholes that had been.
So it's like a perfect storm in many ways. All these factors combining to create the current situation.
And you could not guess this at all.
I know, right? Because I'm just thinking, I was walking up to the studio thinking, it's great to come back to the studio and do Ramadan Radio like we've always done it. And I'm thinking, before we came off air the very first time before lockdown, the world has changed immensely. We had a pandemic, which we thought was bad enough. And then, ongoing political tensions around the world are escalating day by day. And now we've got a cost of living, a disaster in many ways. There are so many people now who are working as hard as they've ever worked before, but it just seems like they're not making any progress. So I want to come back to the energy thing and then just ask, can more be done by the regulators, the government, the energy suppliers? Because I'm reading again in the news that a lot of these big energy companies are making, record profits. And should they be a responsibility for them to pass on their profits or pass on the savings back to the consumer?
Well, if you're asking from a consumer's perspective, we would always say yes.
Absolutely.
That's what we want to see. That's what we want to hear. Now, you have to bear in mind that a lot of the suppliers have multiple interests. So it's not all energy. There is some good news on the horizon, however. UK they've invested in, I think it's about 30 wind farms, each with one of those generates enough power to power London.
So one wind farm can power the size of a city of London?
Yes.
Right, okay.
So they are being put live within the next year. So it all depends on the storage technology that we have, because right now, the biggest problem we have with wind is the storage capacity, because you can't really store energy as well as you can store gas. Because that's why they use gas in such high volumes, because it can be brought in, it can be stored, and it can be burned to make electricity. Whereas wind-powered electricity, you can't really store it. So that's the challenge that they're having.
So wind, as it generates, you have to use it.
You have to use it.
Okay, that's it. So I think
so back to your point, is what can suppliers do? Right now, they can try to get as much green energy produced as possible. We could need to become more self-sufficient.
So when you say green energy, give us some examples of what constitutes green energy.
Would be solar, for example, heat source pumps. If the government were to invest heavily in getting heat source pumps for every household and subsidize it, that would be fantastic.
Because they're quite expensive, aren't they?
Heat
source
really
pumps.
Expensive.
What's the average price for a say 3-bedroom house to have a heat source pump?
For everything to be done, you're talking about between £10,000 and £12,000.
And that was obviously come out the pocket of the individual, the householder.
I mean, you can lease this, so you can get a subsidized cost, and the government were doing schemes where you do get it a little bit cheaper, but again, still £10,000 to £12,000 on a leasing thing is still very, very high.
It just feels like we've sort of, as a country, we've missed a trick when it comes to exploring all of these alternative energy options, which seem very viable. You talked about wind power. I'm sure there's solar, there's hydro. Talk a bit about hydro.
Hydro is water source energy. It's what traditionally we would use in your log pile homes or your traditional iron kiln burners. They would use the power of water to generate turbines, and that was where they got energy from. Okay. So we're going to go to the text now, Azar. We've got somebody has just asked, what are the top 3 things to do right now that can help reduce energy consumption in the home? Over to you, Azar. Come on the spot. No pressure. No pressure. First and foremost, follow your kids around. Make sure they turn the lights off.
Oh, let's not go there. Actually, forget the kids. My dad's the worst. He's always leaving lights on all over the place. So, Dad, if you're listening, switch off your lights.
Another thing we have a bad habit of is, I know it's not going to make massive differences immediately, but a lot of people haven't looked at the actual conditions of their walls.
Okay. So let's elaborate a bit on that then.
A lot of people have that debate whether having your heating on all day on a steady temperature is the best way to go, or just switching it on when you're cold. I don't think either is the best way to go. The best way to go is to look at your insulation, because a lot of our homes, they've been built 50, 100, 150, 200 years ago. So the brickwork isn't as good as it is now, and they're not very good at maintaining temperature.
Oh, you know what? Because my wife was saying, because we live in quite an old house, it's an old build, and the heat loss in those homes is incredible.
Absolutely.
As soon as you've heated a room, and if you open a door or a window or something, the heat just evaporates, and it's gone.
So think about that. If you were to create a porch in your front door, so all that wind or heat loss from that simple porch, it doesn't need to be extravagant, a couple of £100, it would save you hundreds of pounds on your energy. Why? Because that heat loss is not happening anymore. So when we talk about walls, we're talking about ceilings.
Okay.
A lot of our people in Leicester live in terraced houses. So we should actually be warming one another. why are all our terrace houses losing so much heat? Because there's such poor conditions of walls.
So is there any support or grants or funding available for homeowners to improve their walls?
Yes, they are. That's the good thing.
That's what the listeners want to know, bro. Come on.
So
Tell us.
You need to contact your local authority to find out what's available in your area. And they will do an inspection on your home to find out whether they meet certain requirements. Anything in the last 50 years won't count. So any homes that have been built in the last 50 years, unless there's a defect that's been registered in those homes,
right,
they won't apply for those. If your house has been made for over 100 years, you're more than likely 90% sure to get that done. But there has to be a joint income, a joint contribution there. So you will be asked to put something forward, but on the long side, on the far side, you need to understand that it is going to reduce your energy consumption.
It's an investment, so you will see that money coming back. It's like
you feel it immediately, even in your home.
Okay.
The general warmth of your home will improve massively.
All right, so that's two things. So we've got kids, switch the lights off, and don't kind of just be wasteful of energy. The walls, and what's the final top 3 tip that you can give?
I mean, there's something that we do a lot is overboil a kettle.
Oh yes.
Okay. Now, if you talk about energy as a consumption, right? Every time you boil a kettle, how many times is a kettle boiled a day? It's probably 0.2 of a kilowatt. It's not much. If you boil it 5 times, that's 1 kilowatt. That's easily boiled 5 times a day.
And what's the kilowatt price at the moment on average, if you know off the top of your head?
Yeah, for homes, it's 27p.
27p.
Per kilowatt.
Wow.
So if you say it's 1 kilowatt, you easily boil that kettle 10 times. I mean, especially if you're a traditional Asian home, you're boiling that kettle constantly.
Chai's on the go, man. I mean, we're above chai wala right now.
So that's easily one of the biggest and quickest way you could do it. You need to look at the fractions of kilowatts now, not just kilowatts themselves. People are just looking at, it's okay. I'm boiling a kettle, I'll use it later. But no, that costs you money. Every time you boil that kettle now, it's costing you a quarter of a kilowatt, which is 6p.
Yep.
Yeah. Or it's going to cost you 27p a day.
Okay, so is there value in, say, for example, boiling a kettle for your tea, or heating up water on the stove traditionally?
What you want to do is fill up your cup of water, whichever you're going to have. If I'm making a cup of tea for myself, fill up the cup of water for myself, then boil that water. Don't boil more than you have to, because that will boil a lot quicker than boiling a whole kettle of water and then reboiling that whole kettle of water next time you do it again. Because we're not making 4 cups of tea at a time. We're making maybe 1, maybe 2.
That's right.
So again, they just immediately, just to add on that, if you don't have LED lighting in your home, it's a must.
LED lights.
LED lights is the best way to go.
They've sort of overtaken the traditional sort of
they have,
halogen and filaments.
A lot of people still have halogen lighting, which I'm really surprised about. And on the LED lighting, your sensors outside, make sure they're on, especially for security lights. I've walked past homes after Maghrib and Isha, and lights are on constantly.
Really?
There's no need to have that. Make sure the sensors
come on, folks. Listen, guys, we've got golden advice coming from Azar Khan, energy specialist here on Radio Ramadan. 87.7 FM. This is the Drive Time show, brand new to Radio Ramadan this year. And if you've got a question, we're going to move on to the commercial aspect of energy shortly. But if you've got a question for Azar, or you'd like to make a comment, drop us a text or a WhatsApp on 077 488 55055. Or why not ring in the studio and say hello and speak to us on 0116 482 2086. Before I come back to you, Azar, I just want to say to the listeners, it's great to be back, and thank you so much for listening in and supporting us. I also want to say a big thank you to everyone behind the scenes here at Radio Ramadan FM. There's a lot of work goes into getting us on air, and we have a fantastic production team and volunteers and people behind the decks. So people like Akil, Sister Sabiha, just so many volunteers who are doing so great work. So a big jazakallah khairan to you, and Allah will give you jazakallah khair for your work, because I suppose, Ramadan, everyone associates Ramadan with the radio nowadays, and it's a great way to sort of learn. And people like you, Azar, you come on and you enlighten us with your expertise and your professional advice. So that's fantastic. Now, also, folks, and this is for the youngsters, I would like to have one of my shows, inshallah. So Monday to Friday, 5 to 6 p.m. is Drive Time.
Some people who all saw their lives like empty boxes. They looked around the world collecting up the things they liked.
Then get
They
in touch
filled
with
their lives
the Radio Ramadan and submit your idea, and then I will choose a date where you can come on in the studio with me, and we'll talk about whatever it is you want as part of Drive Time. So it'll probably be in the last 2 weeks of Ramadan, and I'll give you the date, inshallah, hopefully by the end of this week, once I get my schedule sorted out. But we'll take it from there. So we've got Azar Khan, Axiom Energy Consultant Specialist, here in the studio, and he's talking everything from gas, electric, water, fire, all those good things. So the top 3 tips were, just recap, kids, well, not just kids, but anyone in your house, just make sure you switch your lights off, you keep your windows closed to keep heat in, and you insulate and those sorts of things. Walls, get your walls checked out. There should be local authority funding available or a scheme available, so get in touch with your city or borough council. And the last one was, don't overboil or don't unnecessarily waste energy. So when you're boiling a kettle, make sure it's just for 1 cup or 2 cups, depending on how many people are drinking that tea, and you will save some money, because the per kilowatt price has just rocketed.
Absolutely.
So, okay, Azar, let's move on to businesses now.
Of course.
And you do a lot of work with a lot of businesses of all sizes, I assume. Is that right?
Yes, all sizes, alhamdulillah.
And what are you seeing in the market right now? Because I think the last time we met, energy was kind of like not in the situation. It was maybe at the polar opposite, wasn't it? You know, not many people were changing or switching. Prices were good, and I suppose right now people are sort of ringing you 24/7 saying, "What do I do? How do I do? How do I solve this problem?"
It is. We met kind of like off the back end of COVID, you know, and COVID was great in terms of energy prices because there was so much extra energy. So suppliers were a brilliant situation where they can drop prices. We had prices come down as low as 15p.
Wow.
Oh,
the good old days, eh? 15p.
You know, and then within a day, you know, once everything opened up again, suppliers realized, hang on, wait, we can't meet this demand. We need to buy more energy. And then the dirt started coming up and realizing, hang on, this is really poorly managed. Yes, we know suppliers lost a lot of money during COVID because they had bought energy which they could no longer use. So it was wasted. Mm-hmm. Not good for the planet because they had to burn it, right? Whereas all the green energy, alhamdulillah, was where whenever they burn it, it's not so harmful on the planet. But it just went round in circles. And the moment COVID finished, everyone opened up for business. Our power plant burnt down. So it's been an absolute roller coaster in terms of the market.
It's like it goes from bad to worse, doesn't it?
It did go from bad to worse. When we were in COVID, alhamdulillah, you know, businesses were not looking for pricing because they were not on site. You know, energy wasn't the main cost. The main cost was just let's make sure we operating.
We survive.
You know, the mindset was just survive. Whilst the mindset is still survive, it's not survive in terms of making money. It's survive in terms of reducing costs. So now everyone's like, whoa, hang on, wait. I've finally realized that my energy agreement is ending in the next 4 months. What on earth should I do? Mm-hmm. You know, I'm stuck. Help me. And when you submit prices and prices are 10, 15,000 pounds a year more, you can't do anything.
Okay, so we had the top 3 tips for consumers. Are there any similar tips that you can give to businesses right now?
Businesses need to manage energy a little bit differently because there are certain processes they can't change. They need to, first and foremost, understand those processes and see what makes their business tick. In terms of energy, what's the best return I can get on it? If it means contacting your landlord and saying, right, we're in an ideal position for solar, let's take ourselves off grid. What that means is if you can get enough solar panels to generate enough energy to run your restaurant, run your factory, run your warehouse, whatever it may be, that is the best thing you can do right now.
You mentioned the term off-grid. Just for our listeners who might not understand, just explain, please, if you could, what off-grid actually is.
Off-grid, basically, you're self-sufficient in terms of your energy. Whatever you generate, you use. Mm-hmm. So you are not reliant upon the grid work for your energy. So you don't, in essence, pay anything. What then happens is suppliers then, if you're generating excess energy, you can actually sell it back to suppliers and make money from that. And that's a whole different thing altogether because suppliers will try to sell you or buy energy off you from as little as 2 to 4p, which is ridiculous considering they're selling it at 30p. So again, that's another thing that you need to be very, very careful of. And if you own farms, and I know some of our listeners will own these large premises, why not get solar panels there? Why not get wind farms, farms? The government is looking for places to have these things placed.
So you could lease your land out to the government, and they will install a wind turbine farm. Wow, and that's going to be a good money maker.
Absolutely, and farms are very heavy energy users. We don't think they are. There's a lot of energy that goes into farms and general processes in terms of your cattle, your milk, and all these processes. They take a lot of energy. So if a farm can have that, their energy will be free, and they're getting money from the government in terms of leasing.
Okay. So that's really interesting. So, I just want to come back to the current situation that we're in right now, and I don't know if you're able to predict how long we're going to be in this situation for, or will we ever get back to a relatively stable market as far as prices are concerned for the average consumer?
We won't see our 15, 16p's anymore.
That's it. That's gone.
That's gone.
That's gone.
I think 23, 24, 25p will probably be where the market's going to stabilize, simply because the suppliers can. I think in terms of buying and selling, you should be able to go back to 15, 16p, but I don't think you will see suppliers make that sacrifice, because there's a lot of risk in terms of energy purchasing. Mm-hmm. We've had a lot of businesses come in and go out. So when suppliers have bought that energy, they have lost out a whole amount of energy that's not being used. If they've got a good planning structure in place, they've been able to source it elsewhere. But if they don't, they've had to lose their money out of pocket. So suppliers are not willing to do that anymore. So they will try to capitalize on that. And with the price cap now, the commercial market's due for a big shock in October.
So what do you mean by a big shock in October?
There's a review happening right now as we speak in terms of energy.
Who's leading that review?
Government suppliers with Ofgem and the government. Labour are fighting against that in terms of trying to reduce taxes to compensate for any price rises. But Ofgem are saying, look, that's out of our control. That's to do with government. We are energy pricing. We're not government. So it more than likely, because of everything that's going on, we're going to see another price rise in October.
Okay, you heard it here first, folks. So, okay, now, being serious, obviously it's the capitalist nature of the environment and the economy that we live in that's going to always, market forces dictate how much we pay, what we pay, and if we choose to pay. Everyone has a choice. Well, I don't suppose with energy you have a choice.
Burner if you want.
I suppose, you could start chopping down trees and spinning in the park and start putting them on your fire, but I don't think, I would recommend going that far. So you think that these high prices are here to stay? I mean, obviously, then the market will need to correct itself, because high prices means you need to have higher incomes, and higher incomes will then generally push everything else up. We're seeing staple food items just going through the roof right now. Things like bread, milk, all these sort of daily essential food items, and then people are being encouraged not to sort of spend unnecessarily on so-called luxury items and things like that. It just seems like it's going to get harder and harder for the average person.
We saw this similar happen in the 70s with the initial credit crunch, and we had a big issue in terms of energy, in terms of value for money, and it goes in swings and roundabouts. I think for the next, especially with energy, we're not going to see a decrease in pricing for the next 2 years. Because that's when we're hoping all this offshore grid is going to be fully operational. But then that means how long will it take to correct itself? So now that's completely out of our control. Now, you say 23, 24, 25p is expensive. Well, if someone gives you 22, 23, 24, anything like that, I would advise you bite their hand off and take it. Because right now, commercial energy prices, as a minimum, you're getting is about between 30. Some people are even getting 45, 50p signed. So, if you have to be very conscious in terms of what you're doing with the market. If someone's offering you more than 35p per kilowatt on a 2-year deal, or even longer, we need to be able to say no. We need to stop and say no.
Okay, so we get some comments coming in. We've got Sister Memuna Ghazi saying, who submitted the 3-tip question. So we like that. Thank you very much for that. And her brother, it's a bit of a family thing going on, saying great tips and insights from brother Azar as well. So Jazakallah to Nash for his comments. And we've got another question coming in saying, what about people who end up in fuel poverty? What help is out there for those families?
Unfortunately, there hasn't been much stated. There was a big push to have this share of profits being sent out to try and get a government give like a fuel emergency, shall we say, which covered energy costs. There are a number of suppliers who are saying if you are struggling to pay your bills, get in touch with us. We can try and help delay payments or even extend your current contractual term so that you're paying less but over a longer period of time. But there isn't nothing to say, yes, here's £1,000 to help cover costs.
Like a relief fund or something like that.
There is no relief fund.
But that doesn't mean to say that the government might not introduce it at some point.
It's being pushed without a doubt. And that's where the reducing taxes come. Because with everything we pay tax, even on energy we pay tax. If they were to reduce tax on energy itself, that would be a considerable saving in what we have at the moment.
Yeah, because, again, it's like fuel duty as well. When you go to the pumps to fill up, extortionate prices, the highest they've ever been. And again, there's a cynical part of me saying that those prices won't come down and they're likely to stay. But
when we first hit the pound, do you remember when we first hit
oh my God.
fuel, everyone was absolutely shocked.
Minds were blown.
When we hit 150, there was a huge queues and huge protests. Government didn't budge. Government didn't change any taxes.
Well, no, of course not, because the more we spend on fuel, the more that goes in. And
And
plus
the
with
thing is,
COVID and everything.
We're reliant on fuel as a nation, right? Think about the export, import, think about the traveling. There's cars on the road constantly. Nobody can turn around and go, hang on, wait, I'm not going to travel now. And that's a nation coming together and saying we're not going to travel. That's borderline impossible.
But it goes back to that perfect storm scenario where, with Brexit and everything else, when we now find ourselves in this sort of situation where the thing that's going to be hit the most is the pocket. And
It is. And the thing is, hindsight's an amazing thing, yeah.
Oh gosh, there's so much I wish I could do if I had hindsight. That would be my superpower. That
instead
would.
of people stocking toilet paper, we'd be stocking fuel barrels, right?
Oh God. Oh well, the good old days of just stocking toilet paper and rice bags. Yeah, okay. I take that any day. Listen, folks, this is Ramadan Radio 87.7 FM coming to you live on Drive Time, a brand new show to get you through to Asr and Maghrib, inshallah, every day, Monday to Friday, 5 to 6 p.m. with me, Irfhan M. So, if you like the show, tell your friends. If you don't like the show, tell us, and we'll try and improve it. But sadly, I'm not going to be here tomorrow or Wednesday or Thursday. I'm away for work, which is just, kind of sod's law kind of thing. You just sort of, you wait for this and then I get called out to work. So I'll be back on Friday, inshallah. I'm not quite sure who's stepping into the hot seat for the next couple of days, but whoever it is, give them your support and tune in 5 to 6 p.m. And remember, we're going to have a takeover show coming up in the next couple of weeks. Youngsters, I want you to get involved. I want you to sort of take part in local radio. So if you've got an idea for a show, or you want to come on and talk about something that's close to your heart, please do. Inshallah, I'm going to have some great guests lined up for you. Great guests like Azar Khan, the very first guest on our show. We're going to have people from Loras on. We're going to have people from the financial world. I've got so many jam-packed guests ready to come on and share their wisdom. So wherever you do, remember, keep it locked 5 to 6 p.m. on 87.7 FM. You can listen online and on your smart speakers as well. Just seen Sister Zainab come into the studio. She's going to be getting ready for her show, Breaking Stereotypes, at 6 p.m. So make sure you tune in. She's got some amazing guests lined up for you as well. Let me see if I've got any more questions coming in for Azar. Yes, Maimuna, you are keeping Akil busy. Keep the questions coming in. I had a question, Azar, but I forgot now. I've lost it. It just comes with my age now. I'm so sorry. We've got about 5.5 minutes left of this show. Just tell me, I'm really curious to understand, how did you get into energy? Was this something you were passionate about or you just fell into?
I was working for one of my last companies and I was doing a business development role. And one of my customers, who was in the energy sector, he owned, or well, should we say he was recruiting for that area. And he said to me, come work for me. I went, why? So he just did the sales spiel and I went, energy is a market that works and it's going to continue working.
Yeah.
And he goes, look, you're a people's person, Bismillah, come work for me. And he was Muslim as well. So I went, okay, khair. So we discussed payment and packages and schemes and all of this lovely stuff that we do. And alhamdulillah, I started. I started from ground zero. I didn't have any idea what energy was besides the
No leads, nothing. Just
no leads, nothing.
complete
Neutrons,
blank
protons is
canvas.
what I learned in school, and that was about it. That's all I knew about energy. But the market was completely shocked, a complete shock to my system in terms of how we generate energy to how we supply it to customers.
You know, I think because people are now having to pay more attention to energy, it's a lot more complex than, just flicking on your light switch or turning on your kettle.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Especially for when you come to commercial. Domestically, it's a lot simpler because you have less voltage going into that home. So the more voltage you're dealing with, the more power you're having, the more surge-proof mechanisms you need to put in, not just the home, but the local grid and the national grid. It becomes that much more complex.
So I'm thinking if you're a massive manufacturing factory and you're operating 24/7, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, that must be some serious consumption going on.
It is, and it's also some serious mischarges going on as well.
By the energy companies?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Because what happens is when you start up a new business, okay, and you increase your manufacturing, there's an estimated done by your local grid provider. So just say they estimate you're going to use, 5 gig worth of energy or 10 gig worth of energy. Along comes with that is a kVA voltage charge. So if you were to switch everything on at max performance at one time, there would be a voltage required to maintain that. 99% of the time, that's estimated. And should we say about 40% of businesses actually evaluate that. 60% of businesses don't. Which means if you go over, you're charged 2.5 times per kVA. So that could be £46,000 a month extra because it's been estimated. So if you were to drill it down and find out what your voltage is.
And I'm guessing people, they don't really sort of check their car insurance when it comes to renewal time. A lot of people just don't pay attention to that.
Yeah. I mean, if your wind wipers are working, why would you change them?
True.
If your windscreen wipers are working, why would you change them? But then if you were to go for something more efficient, that cleaned your window cleaner, better, you would never know until you had a look at it.
Until you try it, that's right.
Because it's
right.
done the job for so long, you're seeing consistent overcharges. That's the problem. You're not even seeing a fluctuation of charging.
Is it deliberate? I mean, that's the cynic in me.
No, it's not.
No,
it's not, because the supplier works on what information they've been given.
Of course.
You can have an estimated billing, and if you don't have a smart meter, that's probably another thing that businesses really need to look at. Smart meters are not going away. They're not a damage to businesses. They're actually helping businesses get correct charges.
So smart businesses are the way forward. Right, Brother Azar, just conscious of the time. We got a couple of minutes left before we go into the break, and Sister Zainab comes on air with her Breaking Stereotypes show. Folks, I hope you've enjoyed it. I've certainly learned a few things. So Jazakumullah khair for your time this afternoon. I know everyone's busy with the school runs and everything, so I'm really grateful, and I'm really honored that you were the first guest on Drive Time with me, Brother
Honestly,
Irfhan.
when you messaged and contacted me and said you wanted me on, I was quite lost for words. I'm not normally lost for words. And alhamdulillah, my wife goes, look, go on.
Azar, if you ever heard me on the radio, let me assure you, it's the guests who make the show, not me. It's the guests that make the show. So we're really grateful.
I don't know. Should we ask the producers?
No. Well, I'm not sure Aki would agree, but listen, really grateful. Final message to our listeners.
Any questions, get in touch, honestly.
Okay, so if you want to get in touch with us, we'll have his details with the radio station. So do contact Akil and Ramadan FM, and is it okay for us to share your details with them?
Absolutely. You know what it is? A lot of people guess these things and think, he can't help me. Look, just ask.
Okay, and I've got Azar's number as well. So anyone who's listening has got my number. I'll be more than happy to put you in touch with him. Folks, on Friday, I'll be back with 5 to 6 p.m. Drive Time. And on Friday's edition, we will have a very good friend of mine, Muhammad Kolia, who is a pharmacist, but a mental health advocate. And we're going to be talking about the history of mental health in Islam. So make sure you tune in. That is going to be absolutely mind-blowing, if you pardon the pun. You know, we're talking about minds and stuff, but it is going to be mind-blowing. And I can't wait for Muhammad to come into the studio and talk to us about Islam and mental health, because there's so much that has gone on within Islam and the history of Islam around mental health that it's just incredible. And again, it's just showing that, you know, there's been a lot of pioneering work in this field. But I'm going to say goodbye now. It's been fantastic being